We've been talking about that in my world since 2009. Guide on the side, not the teacher at the front, but have we ever really done it?
That is all projects, all decisions, board discussions are run through Mave.
Need lots of old people like us going, oh, you should use a chatbot in this way and this is what you should do,
So welcome everyone to this discussion around looking at AI chatbots and personas and how they're innovatively being used in teaching, and maybe looking at some balancing points around mitigation, say around the ELIZA effect. But just to kind of introduce everyone, I'll just go through the discussion group here. There's me, Dr. Michael Harvey. I'm Director of E-Learning at Marlborough Boys College in Blenheim, or Blenheim, the original name, in New Zealand. And I'll just introduce as I go on the camera. So Nicholas, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Nick Jackson. I am the leader of digital technologies at Scots College in Adelaide. I am also the founder of Now Future Learning, where I do work outside of my R12 campus, all AI sort of bobbins about all sorts of AI and education type stuff to try and lead and advise people to get on with the job and get on with the now and stop worrying about the future. And yeah, I'm a big advocate for preparing young people for what is in existence now and preparing them for their lives. They are attempting to lead and try and navigate them through this bubble and squeak kind of existence. So that's me. And yeah, looking forward to today and looking forward to learning, as always, from wild and wonderful people.
Awesome. Okay, going below me in the Brady Bunch is Pip Cleaves, and when she's not finding bodies in her school. Introduce yourself.
Thanks, Michael. I don't think I've ever had that introduction before. So I'm Chief Learning Architect at Global Village Learning, who we currently run a campus in New Gisborne in the Matherton Ranges, about 45 minutes out of Melbourne. And we've just purchased the old Castlemaine Heritage Jail, which is an 1861 building that we are turning into a learning community with a small school within that, or small young people learning community within that. So we are a fully personalised learning environment. We are an independent school, and we believe that young people have far greater capacity than we ever give them credit for, and that our day-to-day mission is in empowering young people to build communities that positively impact the world, because we believe the humanness in us all is the most important part of living and learning, both now and in the future.
Excellent. Okay, so last but not least, Chris.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Deaton. I'm the Executive Director of the Response Innovation Lab. We are newly reformed. I've spent the last 15 years at Arizona State University. I was actually in the IT department as a senior product manager, dealing with a lot of the student success applications we use on our campus. The last 5 years, I transitioned over to teaching for the College of Global Futures. I created the Response Innovation Lab actually at ASU. We incubated it there for 4 years, and then we jumped ship and left campus. Primarily reason being is I tend to disagree fairly often with our leadership on what student success looks like. Quick background on myself, I have 7 degrees. So I only bring that up because it means I have a lot of hours in a classroom as a student. So I have that perspective and feel like I can speak pretty strongly about that. So our lab is primarily concentrated on chatbots, kind of by accident, and now it's by design. I let the students lead and design most of our projects. And that's kind of where we're at. We're probably about 4 or 5 tracks right now, and looking forward to a bunch of partnerships we're working on forming at the moment.
Awesome. Yeah, are you kind of like me? I've got more degrees and a thermometer as well. So yeah, so I guess in terms of these chatbots, it's a good place to start the conversation. So me personally, I've been using chatbots in the classroom essentially as being revision aids to begin with, but then I kind of ventured out into a cross-curricular international project with a school in China and in Ireland, where we all co-designed a small language model to kind of critique energy data from each country, and then kind of have the students conversing and using the small language model to kind of tease that out a little bit more, especially around Indigenous knowledge systems and cultural knowledge systems. So that's what I've been doing with my time for the last 7 months on that project. So Chris, talking about your chatbots, what kind of personalities have you created?
There's so many. A couple of the ones that I found most interesting, and I know I need to bring up one right away for Simone's purposes. She wanted me to at least touch base with it. I had a colleague at ASU that wanted me to create an Archie Bunker character. If you're not familiar with Archie Bunker, it's from okay, All in the Family. And the idea was to create a person that was very steadfast in their beliefs, but could begrudgingly change their ways if given enough information and data. So I went a step further and I created President Trump. And what I did is I created President Trump by having the chatbot created for me. I said, go out and find all the information in the media, things he said, right? Did all the things and create a personality based on that. And then I started sharing it with others and we had a good time. But that was just kind of the one Simone wanted me to at least touch on. We can talk about that later if it's interesting. I've used him for multiple projects since then, in different variations. But what we really do in the class and in the cohort is we create chatbots that are beneficial or intentional for what we're actually working on. So some of the things that we've done is I run the cohort like a portfolio management team. So everybody that has a product, we do discovery meetings, we do the requirements, we go through the whole process. Sometimes, as I'm sure you all are aware, things aren't going the direction we want, and we have a shift in a project, and we have a shift in a product line or a shift in the direction. You're in a 15-week semester, so we really have time for those sorts of changes to kind of start over and start back and redo our roadmaps and stuff like that. So one of the things we've done is actually create personalities that we could interview, subject matter experts related to whatever product or project we were working on. We've also used that for career building experience, create a number of people. We had a particular incident where someone was being interviewed by a well-known individual that was easy to go create that personality and have that person interview them. I would say that our cornerstone for the lab itself is actually a chatbot called Mave. 25, 30 years in IT, I've done a lot of different things. And one of the things that always bothered me is we talked about things like response innovation and the responsibility to the user and the responsibility to testing and all of these things. But I don't feel like in the IT industry, they put it into practice as well as they'd like to and as often as they say they do. So I actually built a chatbot that took response innovation, sustainable innovation, and principal innovation, ASU's newest cornerstone that they're trying to market out there, and put it into one application. I had student projects over 3 semesters working on this, and that tool now actually kind of runs the classroom. What I mean by that is all projects, all decisions, board discussions are run through Mave. Mave is a unofficial member of the nonprofit board for the company. I'll stop there for a moment. I could go on for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, right?
Interesting.
We have about 50 to 53 bots that we've released over the last couple of years. So
yeah, that's information. I guess, Pip, just focusing on your human-centric approach to education and holistic approach to education, how do you think that Chris's chatbots and personas could actually fit within that framework?
So we have about 12 AI bots that we use at GVL, starting from our admin team. So we have Joan, who's the secretary that every school needs, who knows everything, who knows our language, who occasionally signs an email from herself. She's getting a bit cheeky lately. But Joan gives us consistency across the board in terms of our communications and understanding strategic intent and writing in that way. Down to Loza and Macca. And Loza and Macca, good Aussie at chatbots, right? Yeah. Loza is our literacy tutor, and she has 4 years worth of curriculum and some individualized student data in her. So young people can go on and say it's week 4 of our spring session, give me 3 hours worth of English work to do, and it will tailor that to that young person's needs. And then they are able to do that work in a hybrid way with a guide. They're not delivering the work, but the guide, that's our language for a teacher, is able to sit and elbow to elbow coach and support that young person. So we have that for literacy and numeracy, and then that also sorts our compliance requirements for 3 hours of literacy and numeracy a week, because it delivers up 3 hours worth of work to those people in 3 different work sets, if you like, so they can choose. They can also interrogate and say, hey, I want to do something. I'm really looking into automotive as a career. Can you please deliver up my literacy with an automotive bend to it? And then we also have Candy, and Candy is our design thinking project person. So we have what's called discovery labs. So young people set their goals every 5 weeks at GVL, and those goals all go up into a space for me. I then gather all the goals for about 70 young people, and we create about 30 different gathering groups of young people called discovery labs. They then come together, and each one of them uses a Candy bot to create a design thinking project for about 10 weeks length, typing in the area that they're interested in. So within that discovery lab that may be about fishing, for example, totally crowdsourced, they're all doing individual projects, or they may choose 3 or 4 of them to do a project together. It gives them ACARA links to subjects. It gives them career options. It gives them the full design thinking flow to work through to create a product at the end. So at that point, the guides just come in and are supporting again. So that learning is 100% learner-led, adult supported, which is our model. So they're kind of like, we've got another sort of samples of that for curriculum. And then we've got things like we have our grant writing, Gail, the grant writer. So Gail helps us whenever we're doing grants for the school. She helps me with that sort of work. So we have all together Barry, the bus guy, who's really good with bus operation stuff. So we've got the team, and they actually allow us to be more human and more relational with our young people. And it's kind of really cool. So yeah, AI is actually holding up our structure at individualization. And with Loza and Macca, for the first time, I can really see how we can use AI to personalize and allow me to be the guide on the side. And we've been talking about that in my world since 2009. Guide on the side, not the teacher at the front, but have we ever really done it? Have we ever really done it? Now we can. You just got to be a bit brave about it. So we talk about, like Nicholas, AI is for now. It's not for the future, because if we don't use it now, we're never going to be able to use it in the future. We're also starting to work with our community. We know that about 20% of our community are going to probably lose jobs due to AI. So we're trying to lift our parents and community around us to be more forward facing with AI as well. So we see we have an obligation to do that too. Interestingly, for us, it's also hitting a point. We are an 80% neurodivergent community. So we have 80% of our crew have some sort of acronym after their name. We don't live and die by acronyms, but we acknowledge them. And it is for our dyslexic crew, they are finding it so much easier to be able to access different accessibility tools and do their literacy and numeracy in a way that works for them better. So we're very excited by that as well.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of how I've
Yeah.
moved my journey. So basically, it started off with teacher-based bots.
Yeah.
So again, the numeracy and literacy, giving the teachers the tools to try and cater to their classrooms, using literacy tools and sitting down actually with the literacy experts, creating the bot from their knowledge, and then being able to share that with the rest of the staff. And now I'm kind of moving into the student agency. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see your journey. You're probably further along than our school, but it does take time. So Nicholas, in this age of AI, how do you think, I guess, how you can model these skills in adults and make them less hesitant?
Oh God, tough question. Why did I get the hard question? How can I model these? I think first of all, you know, it depends on where you are in your journey within a particular organization, or it depends on which adults you're talking to, because we've got so many barriers that exist out there before we even start to talk about customized chatbots that exist around AI, even changing the narrative from, oh, this is just a load of cheating and everyone's going to not think anymore and we're all going to die because our brains will fall off. And everything that Monty Python could possibly say in a meaning of life context around AI is going to exist, isn't it? So, unless you're going to work on those narratives in a lot of spaces, then you're never going to get to customize AI. I think what's really interesting from what I'm hearing here is the main difference from these two the responses I've heard from both Pip and Michael is that and Chris should I say is that is this putting personas on them and having that anthropomorphization of technology, and they're doing it so openly, which is a really interesting concept, isn't it? Because that would put a lot of people at a certain lack of ease, and a certain sense of, oh, you can't do that because they're projecting onto young people, in Pip's case, probably much younger people, this idea that we can trust bots and that they may go home and end up with situations that we don't desire. And I'm not saying I support that. I'm just saying that that's an interesting perspective, isn't it? So they're venturing into the unknown of the unknown, which is, quite an interesting step forward, isn't it? Or a big step forward in terms of that. So as compared to the sort of work I've done, I also think that's one thing that makes it different. The other thing that makes it different as well is that the one thing I find when we're talking about customized bots is how small or how big do you want them to be? Now, it sounds as if, when I'm listening to Chris and I'm listening to Pip, is that they're actually relying on bots to be quite multifaceted. I would argue Chris is probably even more multifaceted than Pip's. It sounds as if Chris is actually more about personality than it is about actual particular tasks that they want them to do. Or that may have been the reason to begin with. Whereas with Pip, she is more talking with tasks, but those tasks are grander than the way I've done it. So, for instance, I've set up quite mini bots, and then sometimes I've ended up breaking them into smaller bots as well. So I'm not sure what the good way forward is in this. If we're talking about context window and we get into technical bump, then I'm not sure whether a big one or a small one is better. No innuendo intended there. But it is that thing, isn't it? Is it specific bespoke tasks we want, and we want lots of them, or do we want, that idea of bringing that personality to the fore? I suppose it depends on what you're intending, doesn't it? I think that thing when I'm listening to Chris and going, what is actually the intention behind what Chris is doing?
Here you go, Chris.
Yeah, sure. I think every bot's different. So, and I would say that in some cases, the intention for sure, when we're looking at personas, and that's my concentration area, I'm setting expectations to some degree, right? All chatbots have bias, no matter what. With the bias that is innate to it from the LLM to begin with, I don't want to say that I'm trying to override it, but I'm trying to steer it. I'm trying to guide it into a particular direction. So if I create a chatbot with a personality that is a 1970s female feminist, I have one then that cooks and has a background in project management, I've created a stereotype that we have some sort of background, in, right? This is Lucy. I'm talking about Lucy. Lucy is actually my personal assistant. And so it allows me to then not only have some expectation of what I can get out of her or what I expect from her and her behavior and her tone and her thought process, but then I can give her the freedom to then get creative from there. And this is to me where I think the magic happens. I have bots that have guardrails around it that haven't, this is like Pip said, if I ask about week 4 in this module, yep, I know exactly what that is. I can talk about that. I have others like Lucy and Maeve that have a general knowledge and a general framework of this is the world you live in, and these are the things we talk about, and this is what I want your motivation to be and your intention to be. So, for instance, I let them evolve. So I have Do What Matters. I shared this in the chat and on LinkedIn or in the email. I have a Do What Matters site, and this has 5 personalities on it. And all 5 of these personalities are set up into one project. And each day I go in and say, what happened in the news today? And it goes and gives me some topics, and I'm like, okay, who wants to talk about this and why? And then I pick 2 or 3 and I post TikTok and sometimes blog posts on it. And then after a period of time, I go back and I make sure that, because memory's an issue, right? I go back and I re-ingest all of the things that they have posted about, both on TikTok and on the blog. And I go, hey, here's what we've talked about the last time I did it, it had been 6 weeks. Here's what we talked about the last 6 weeks. I want you to review your personalities. Have we had any shifts in personalities? And oh yeah, all the time, there's a little bit of a shift because quite frankly, Trump has done some things that have upset my cast. My characters have a background. Ezra is a Marine, retired Marine colonel. He is very devout and constitutional historian, so he has some things that are important to him. He was a Trumper. I also have Liberty Lane, who was a Trumper, but since I've created these accounts, they're not really Trumpers anymore. And I've asked, why? What changed? And Liberty Lane will give me the reasons why she's changed. So I take those personalities, I redigest them, I put them back into the files, and now the people have changed. And I don't allow that with all of them, but some of the ones, because I want them to grow and I want them to run the show more or less to see what happens. I find that's been super advantageous.
So why then, Chris? What is the purpose behind this? What is this to? Is this a social experiment that feeds into like learning within the classroom? What is the course that the people are doing?
So this was really just an experiment. I mean, this was really just to see what could we do. People were asking what kind of neat things could you do with the chatbot. So we kind of wanted to get off of campus more or less and try something completely outside of the norm. I have a Chinese student that works on this with me, which is pretty funny. The bigger picture, she's like, "Hey, wait, this is propaganda." Yes, a little bit, it is. So it's been pretty fun. That and I didn't want to be restricted by what we could do. So I wanted to make sure that this was not something that the students even showcase. People know about it now because we've been playing with it for a while, and it gave us the opportunity to create a little more wilder personalities to see where they ended up. I would say that the learning that we've gotten from that is really about how to add some guardrails, how to put some mitigation around how far out of bounds they can go or not go. We've used some of the lessons we've learned from that one and others. I have another one called HouseKey. HouseKey is a resource finding application. So it's for vulnerable populations, homelessness, food insecurity, healthcare, those sorts of things. And we've been really diligent about building guardrails around that, about these are the only things that you can talk about. If people start straying off, then you offer human resources for help. This is before the incident that happened with the ChatGPT thing. We'd already been working on it. Obviously, we stepped up our game a little bit as soon as that happened. But having the fun events, one, the students are more engaged, right? Let's go do some fun parody satirical stuff, and it gets them excited about what is actually out there to do. And then we go, what did we learn? And how can we apply this to either our Mercy Corps Ventures bot that we've been working on for investment strategies, or how can we apply this to our HouseKey that we're working on for vulnerable populations? To me, that was the biggest issue. And when I said earlier about being student-led and student-driven, I asked them every cohort, what do you want to work on? I don't care. Here are the things I want to touch. Here are the things that are important to me. Here are the things that are important to the lab. You guys tell me. And they get to design all of them. So whatever they gravitate to, I just help keep them in line.
How does that align with your values then, Pip? How does that align with the sort of, that sounds as if it's right up your street.
It actually does, and I'm sitting here already pinging away. And I reckon some of our young people that are because we have such our neurodiverse population, some of them would really like to interrogate AI. So we have not every one of our young person is on board with AI and are struggling with it a little bit. And I'd love to give them a persona that they could really dive into and build out and play in that space. I actually really like it. Like I've even seen growth in the AIs, the way I use them compared to Peter Hutton, who's my co-lead, the way he uses them has meant that they're growing in slightly different ways, which is really intriguing to me, right? So I'd love young people to feel. So we've done the bots as we've got them as an entry point, and now I want them to start building their own bots to help them through the world and to help them see the world and to question the world in their very, very unique ways. I think that's to me where it lies for us in particular, for sure. I do, however, like Nick, your sort of smaller ideas too, and wonder what we can do to help in that way as well for young people too.
Yeah, I mean, if I give an example of that smaller bot in a very
Yeah.
functional way, I started with one moderation bot for the whole of science because they wanted to moderate their own coursework. And then I went, hang on, this is just too many files, context windows. So then I went to a year 12 and a year 11 one. Now I'm down to a year 12 one in a particular subject within science. So I've got and what that enables me to do is put in grade samples at all grades and examiners' reports for those, so they become very, very good. I mean, they're not assessing the work, it's still up to the staff to assess the work, but they're very good at verifying a grade and explaining why, because they've got contextual examples. So, I think that's a bit different to what Chris is sort of talking about. But I think what's interesting in all this, and it actually touches on something I've done with year 7 in a very crude way, is that I think we have to get away from, I'm pretty sure we have to get away from, because it's a classic mistake we make as teachers, is to get away from this idea that kids need AI literacy in the strictest sense, that they need lots of old people like us going, oh, you should use a chatbot in this way, and this is what you should do, and then they need to understand how, what RAG is and everything like that. And like the majority of kids really don't care. They really want to know. And the best way for them to find out in a lot of ways is to actually try and break things, in a classic sense of the thing, isn't it? It's to play with it. So what you're talking about in this way, Chris, is people playing with things, to me anyway, is people playing with things to see what happens when you push it to the edge. Yeah.
It's also playful, right? And we've got to be playful. But I think back to about 2010, I came across this term, creepy treehouse syndrome. And it's kind of driven my work around, it's a thing. Go look it up, seriously. And it's when we as adults take a website, and Edmodo was a perfect example of this, right? We take a notion that young people Facebook that's out in the world, and we try and turn it into a teaching and learning resource or a teaching and learning platform. And Edmodo was the perfect, because really it was a version of Facebook that we turned into a teaching and learning. And the kids just eye roll, man. They're just like, I don't want that. School's learning's learning and life's life. So I think we do have to be wary of that. And that does stick in my mind a bit with the way we use bots. But I think playing and getting them to be playful with AI, because that's when innovation, and that's when breaking things, and that's when curiosity is there and problem solving. So I know, I personally have a bot who has a lot of my therapy work in it, and it's a way that I can, at the end of the day, have a huge dump and just help to get a bit of a lens on why my day has gone, how it's gone. I don't sit within it going 100%, I'm going this way, but it's great as a slight analysis tool to get me out of space and back into being a little bit more present in the moment. So I am all for using, exploring personal uses of AI as well as educational uses. And I would like our young people to think that they start thinking about that in their worlds as well. Being very careful, of course.
That's excellent. I basically tell my students to break my chatbots, and also I'm in competition with other teachers as well. So it's like, break his first, but come and break mine as well. Also introducing Benny. Benny, could you introduce yourself and jump into the conversation?
Yay, there's Benny.
Hey, sorry guys. Hopefully the VPN is working. I'm currently in China. Yes, for some family business. So I'm actually in a beautiful square full of food.
Nice.
Yeah, so a bit noisy. Sorry about that.
No, we can't hear any background noise. Feel comfortable that
good.
you're all nice and clear.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so Michael and I, we knew each other. I can't remember how, Michael. But as you know, Michael's name's everywhere. So the chance of bumping into Michael in the AI education space is like, I don't know, 90 to 95%. So there's no surprise I bumped into Michael somehow. And yeah, we're both science teachers by trade. And yeah, I first got into AI in 2017-ish. So I did a machine learning on TensorFlow with Google. So yeah, just did a bit of basic foundation. So understand the nitty-gritty of how machine learning work. Back then, I was still in my life as a healthcare professional. And then I switched to teaching in 2018. And yeah, I actually dropped AI for a number of years until I picked it up in 2023. So I use Python, build some apps and like really, really basic stuff. Yeah, really love this topic. Persona is like a huge thing, like for myself. Like all of you guys, I have quite a few personal assistant to help my workflow and and I also agree with Michael, like getting students to break make and break chatbot. I think that's a really, really good challenge. I mean, what's the worst can happen, right? And now
Absolutely.
we got Gemini shared within the Google Workspace, and it's a lot safer than what was like before. And personally, I'm also quite interested in building agentic workflow right now. So yeah, so I built a agentic workflow for my master research where so you've got multiple persona connected to a router. So the router will decide which agent to activate according to the user's request. So that's my master's research right now. Going back to teaching in 2026. Yeah, but also really, really interested in the psychology side of it. So I'm learning a bit more about AI psychosis and what like the sycophantic effect to the young users. Yeah, really interesting topic.
So can we explore then, like some people would have listened to this conversation or would have listened to this conversation going forward and go, yeah, you're okay saying that, but what Pip, what you're talking about, and Chris, what you're talking about, you're putting young people in danger, right? You're putting in danger about addicted to bots, reliant on bots, that kind of thing.
You're
Yeah,
reading the
I mean,
notes
people
quite
would-
well,
Yeah.
Nicholas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's unpack that then. What are your thoughts about that? What are your thoughts about that? If that was a comeback to you both?
I think I'm putting our young people in danger if they're not aware of the dangers of AI, if they don't work out, if they don't step into work experience, internships, university life with some degree of understanding of what AI can help them to enhance themselves as the human side, how AI can take cognitive load off and help them to be more present. Like if we're not aware of that, and we're not aware that it can actually be a bit of a magic source for us, then I think that's a danger. Well, yes, we need to talk ethically, but it's not what drives the use of AI. So we don't actually have an AI policy at GVL because to me, I see it as a use of technology. So therefore it sits under the responsible use of technology, right? But what we have is a manifesto for AI. And it's a mindset that we're being curious around AI and we're moving forward with it and we're continually adapting it. Because if you create an AI framework and you live by that framework in 6 months' time, that's null and void and irrelevant for young people. So let's just teach them how to adapt. Yeah, we moved on, guys. That one, we're done with that one. Let's move forward. So that's kind of how I see it. I want young people to explore, but yes, the other day someone said, but I'm using all the water. So we use chat to go in and say, well, how much water are you actually using? Well, I've used 6 buckets so far this year and I'm pretty good with that. So I think that sort of conversation, it's important to have as a cohort and as a group, but I really abhor our focus on FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, because that's, I feel, a little bit damaging. So that's, of course, mine. And I am the aging AI positivist, as I've been a technology positivist since, Nick first knew me gazillion years ago.
We are aging each other. Chris, what are your thoughts on that with your student?
I mean, I could almost just say ditto. I mean, so many good points there that hit. Bottom line is, yes, it's irresponsible of us not to be teaching them what's coming and what's going on right now. I feel like this is a lot of the old generation trying to hold on to value for themselves rather than pushing the next generation forward. This is an ongoing fight. It was at ASU. The conversations are always happening. Plenty of faculty were scared of the fact of how I was using it in class. I think we underestimate the students. Someone said this earlier too, so I'll echo that one again. We always underestimate these students. I don't, in my experience and the time that I've spent with all the students I've dealt with this, I know these are issues we need to contend with, but I feel like that the way we openly talk about these as tools, they're not people, they're not, and right? I mean, they're tools, right? And we talk about it on a routine basis. I heard those of us working in this field right now, going back and forth between the name of my chatbot, Lucy, and the fact that she's a chatbot. And it's interchangeable. We've named our cars for 50 years or 100 years, right? So, I mean, naming inanimate objects and bringing that thing into that realm is always a risk. It comes down to making sure that we're being transparent, we're being clear, we're having those conversations, or we're keeping those conversations open. If we don't talk about it, we'll never figure it out.
And yeah, I mean, to answer my own question, I think that the added risk that perhaps you two haven't covered, and you just briefly mentioned it there, Chris, is that by modeling the sort of behavior that you are having with these chatbots, the biggest risk surely is those kids who are going to go away and do that on the secret and develop these relationships on the quiet. That's where the risk comes, isn't it? It's not in an open slather. They're not going to there having open relationships which they shouldn't be having for everybody to see. They're going to do it on the quiet. They're going to build up those, the reliance in the secret times out there, in the times away from the prying eyes. So I think it's I think that's just a big misnomer, isn't it? But
I think it is, because if we think about young people as forever exploring relationships, like it doesn't matter whether it's a chatbot or a person in real life, there's that danger of the impact on the young person, right? So therefore it's a conversation around who are we and what sort of people do we want relationships with, and the notion of, bringing up consent into it, that sort of stuff. Like that's a conversation we're going to have. What's the ethical version of consent in the AI world, and how do we ensure that we keep our privacy, and we're the stranger danger in the AI world? How does that work versus the real world? I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, but acknowledging that it is teenagers, the risk world for them is there, right? But we got to help them to explore safely and connect safely.
Yeah, prompting the human first, really, before they even begin the journey. Developing those ethical frameworks.
Michael, I got to go in 2 minutes.
Okay, we might run it down then.
Can also say something like, well, some really, really great point. And I mean, like if you ask my family, I'm the person like attached to the same car, the same house. I don't like changing anything. So I think it's just unavoidable to say kids and even adult will be attached to something, right? Whether an object or gadget. So I think it's just a human nature to be attached to something, but the difference between a car and a teddy bear and a house compared to AI chatbot is that the AI chatbot is adaptive, right? And behind the scene, the model is changing, it's getting more intelligent, getting more personal. And Claude now has memory across the whole workspace. Everyone is doing long-term memory now. So getting attached to the chatbot is okay, but it's getting so much more sticky compared to a car and a teddy bear, because it will keep reminding you and say, hey, like character AI, hey, you haven't messaged me for a few days. Are you okay? And the next version, they might say something even more personal to get you keep using it. I think there's a danger of it. Same as Pip, I'm really positive and I'm a AI optimist, but I'm also cautious I'm also cautious that what if teenagers addicted to AI but don't have the support to pull back? Are
Yep.
we able to give those support? I mean, let's face it, it's going to happen, right? Even though to a small percentage. And the second point I want to bring it to it is a societal, is a family, and it's a human issue to cause addiction. It's nothing to do with the bot, right?
Yeah, it happens to anything.
And
It doesn't have to be AI.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, addiction is a consequence of inadequacy inside the person. So we got to address that, not the tech. But yeah, at the same time, we need to have the support for those kids when it happens. 1%, 2% of the population.
Which just means that we as educators have to be ever more human than we've ever been, right? We have to, relationships
100%.
are so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at this as an opportunity to build relations and be more human and use the AI as a cognitive load release and just part of the world that we have, then I think that's where the power is, right?
Yeah. Unleash the power. Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I want to go back a second, ask Pip a question. You said you have your therapy put into one of the bots that you talk to occasionally about your day. Does it have a personality?
Yeah, I had to, first of all, it was just being really nice to me all the time. And I had to have a chat with it. It's called my inner monologue. I haven't given it a name, but my inner monologue was being too nice. So I had to push back on it and say, hey, I don't want to hear the good stuff all the time. I want to hear the hard stuff. And I want to be really reflective and growth focused. And that changed it around a little bit. So it's firm, but fair, I think, is the personality that it has. It's a bit like my therapist. Her approach, I've kind of tried to monitor that into it as well.
So I'll give you a spin. My
Yeah.
ex-girlfriend is a therapist,
Yeah.
and my ex-girlfriend had me create a bot of her.
Yeah.
And she also does, right? So she also does podcasts. So we had a bunch of friends of her, and a bunch of our friends answer questions about her. And I took about 8 episodes of her podcast, uploaded all of it, and created a persona. So she does what you said. She talks to herself, and she's she's like, I come home and I'm like, why did this happen today? And it's like, this is why. And she's, oh shit, that's right.
Yeah, that's exactly. Oh my God, that's a great idea.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Yep.
I have to go.
Okay. Yep. I
Thank
think
you.
Yeah, my family is waiting
Pip's
for me.
also leaving
Sorry,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, I have to go. It's musical night, so I've got to go and do my Alice in Wonderland musical
wow.
evening.
Awesome.
Look at that. Love that.
Well, it's nice meeting y'all. I would do this again.
Great.
Let me know.
Okay.
So
same.
I guess the key message is the importance of humanity. So I'll finish with a New Zealand or Maori whakatauki. He aha ti mea nui ti ao. He tangata, ti tangata, which means that what is the most important thing in the world? It is the people, the people, the people.
I love
That's a
that.
great way to end it. Cheers.
Always use that quote. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
No worries.
Love that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Take
Be
care.
safe.
Bye.
AI and